Good afternoon and welcome to CWIEME Tech Talks about strategies for scaling Europe's EV charging infrastructure. I'm Alexandra Martins and I'm CWIEME Berlin Senior Content Manager. We are delighted to have you all here joining us today. Hope you enjoy the presentations and connecting virtually with your peers. Before we get started, I would like to quickly go over a couple of housekeeping points for this session. If you have questions, please add them in the comments. This webinar will be available on demand after the sessions, and the slides can be downloaded from our website. I'm pleased to introduce our speakers, Rafey Khan, Head of E-Mobility Research, and Najd Nassereddin, Deputy Director EMEA at PTR. I will now hand over to our speakers. Welcome, Rafey and Najd.
Thank you, Alexandra. So as mentioned, today's presentation is about energizing the future. We will be discussing the strategies for Europe's EV charging infrastructure. Rafey, if you can move to the other side. So the contents of this presentation will we will start with an introduction, so you know who you are getting these data insights from and who PTR are, and then we will move into the current EV market landscape, the current EVCI market landscape, and then we will move to the strategies to scale the market along with market forecasts. So starting with the introduction, PTR is a strategic growth partner for companies in the power sector and the energy sector. So what that means is that we support companies with market research. That's our bread and butter. We started a decade ago. We also do marketing support services. What that means also is content marketing, PR, all from strategy to execution. We also cover advisory service, strategic advisory that comes as a layer on top of the research. For example, if you want to grow your portfolio or your reach, where we can help in that. And then we have your kind of do it on your own tools, Cognito, which is our expert network that supports you with primary research, and then Matos AI, which is a data automation tool. What topics we cover at PTR? Generally, we cover, Rafey, if you can just move the slide, please. What topics we cover? Basically, we cover everything that's related to power grid and energy, or like you can say the electrical space infrastructure. So starting from T&D equipment like transformers, switchgear, control and protection equipment, HVDC FACS, and also moving to a grid edge, which is not always grid edge, but EV charging infrastructure is a huge part of that, and that's why we have a team for the research and the advisory for EV charging infrastructure. Moving forward to the current market situation or the current market landscape, we see in Europe in 2024 there was a hit in the market, and what we see in 2025 from the numbers is that it's rebounding. There's a 25% sales, like up in sales for battery electric vehicles, and also a 32% increase in sales for plug-in hybrids. That shows, of course, a good direction for the growth. And then we have also strong national recoveries. So some of the countries that showed recoveries are UK, Germany, Austria, Spain, especially in BEV sales. Poland has a 106% increase in BEV sales. And also Poland, along with Germany, Spain, and Poland, they already, by the 9th month of 2025, achieved the sales that they got in all of 2024. So it's a good growth from 2024 to 2025. Moving forward to the, let's say, targets and incentives that help this growth. So looking at UK, for example, they had a 300,000 charging points target by 2030. They also allocated £650 million as electric car grant, which offers each electric vehicle 3.7 K pounds. There's also the zero emission vehicle mandate. It's basically a regulation that in 2024 they would regulate that 22% of the sales of like cars, they should be electric vehicles. By 2030, they should be 80%, and by 35, 100%. Along with financial incentives, and so on. Moving to France, France, for example, allocated part of its 2030 investment plan. They allocated 3.6 billion euros for EV charging infrastructure development, 370 million subsidized for social leasing for EVs, and also they did like the tax exemptions and so on. And there's also the Advenure program that everyone, I think everyone heard of, that mentions that by 2027 there needs to be a target of 250,000 charging points, and they allocated 520 million euros for this program. Then if we talk about Nordics, so they're generally the leading region, like the leading part in Europe, you can say. If we speak about Norway itself, 89% of the new vehicles that were sold last year in 2024, they were electric. And they also have a target that by 2030, all their trucks to be electric. Finland has a 25,000 charging points target by 2030. Denmark, 300,000 charging points for private use by 2030, along with tax exemptions. Germany also reintroduced an important, like a law that basically it's, what's it called? Like it supports with consumer aid. And that's basically a 3 billion package that was announced this year in October. To assist low and normal or like middle income households. They also launched supply side incentives. They like basically accelerating depreciation, tax relief, infrastructure support, and also to drive basically fleet electrification with all these laws. Italy as well has supported, and with the incentives and so on, they allocated a 597 million funding through mid of 2026, which aims to replace 39,000 ICE vehicles. And yeah, other incentives as well from Italy and the rest of the region. Then if we move forward to the plug-in vehicles, so there's, let's say, growth, we can see growth more in the plug-in hybrid vehicles in Europe, and that comes from different directions. So if we look at the first thing, the Chinese OEMs, they are pivoting to PHEVs. Why is that? Basically, as we know that EU imposed an anti-subsidy tariffs of 17 to 35%, along with a 10% base duty. Why did Europe do that? Basically, the reasoning is that they see that there is like government support or state support that enables Chinese OEMs to undercut European competitors. There are still Europe and China talks to remove these tariffs and basically introduce a minimum pricing instead. However, that's still just pending approval, political approval from EU side, but everything else apart from that is finalized. And that's why it was easier for Chinese OEMs to enter the market through PHEVs instead of just electric vehicles. So that was a reason for the growth. And then if you look at Europe as a whole, so 2 slides ago, I mentioned that the growth for PHEVs is 32% year on year, which is more than the growth for battery electric vehicles. And that's basically for different reasons in Europe. We see it as a bridge, basically, that the automakers are seeing, where if they make plug-in hybrid vehicles, they will, in a way, reach these emissions targets and also be safer in terms of anticipating consumer behavior, which is like hard to anticipate. Or, for example, the electric vehicles are also a little bit expensive, and that's why some automakers saw this as a bridge to connect, where we can get the consumers what they want and also get those emission targets for now. We see, for example, Volkswagen is one of the automakers that expanded its plug-in hybrids lineup. We have other automakers who, for example, postponed their electric vehicles targets, and also they postponed some of them, the launches of battery electric vehicles, because of the stronger plug-in hybrids demand. So that's the situation when it comes to PHEVs. That's the reason for the growth. Some of it is tariffs, and some of it is also like companies adapting to consumer behavior and so on. Now I'll head over to Rafey to cover the EVCI market landscape along with the strategies and everything.
Thank you so much, Najd. So I'll be starting off with the current EVCI market landscape, and then I'll be discussing some of the challenges that the industry, European industry, is particularly facing right now, and then we'll discuss some of the strategies that are already being taken by some successful players and countries, and we'll see how that could be used by other European countries as well, and then we'll end up with the market forecast that we have for the next 5 years. Um, so, as Najat told us about how the EVs had a bad year last year, that's actually not the case with the public charging infrastructure. The public charging infrastructure has been growing at a good rate for the past 2 to 3 years. From 2023 to 2024, we saw a 25% increase in installation all across Europe, and this year as well, we're seeing a healthy growth of 18% when it comes to public charging infrastructure. So, unlike EVs, which had a bad year last year, the public charging infrastructure is more robust because of a lot of plans from different governments. European Union also has programs to install charging infrastructure, and then there are multiple private investments also happening in the form of different CPOs um, installing chargers across Europe. So it's not as bad as it was for EVs last year. So public charging infrastructure is growing at a decent pace. Um, so with this, I'd like to point out a few facts. Like right now, passenger electric vehicles on the roads by end of 2025 that we expect would be close to 18 million in Europe, and for those vehicles, there will be almost 1.7 million installed public charging points as well. So that's a ratio of almost 10 is to 1, which is actually quite good. This was used as a benchmark as well 5 years back when the European Union was planning on what would be the standard uh, ratio between EVs and charging points. However, there's one important uh, thing that we should notice is that almost 60% of all the charge point installations across Europe, they're concentrated in five major markets. Um, so with this, I'll move on to the next slide, which is actually pointing out the regional disparity that is present in Europe right now. So number one, concentration of chargers right now, like as I said, 55% is concentrated in five countries, and then if we further dig deep down, we'll see that Netherlands, France, and Germany, they host almost like 48% of the chargers, although the geographical area that they cover in Europe, that's only 20%, but the charging infrastructure that they have is close to 50%. London alone has more chargers than several small European Union nations, like Romania, for example. But that actually tells us that there is a great room for improvement for other countries to actually catch up with these major economies. And secondly, regional disparity. Another example, Netherlands has like 31 times more chargers than Romania, despite it being like 7 times smaller than Romania in terms of size and population too. Uh, Similarly, a lot of chargers are concentrated in urban areas all across Europe. Well, it makes sense that most of the population who can afford EVs and are living in urban areas, but uh, it actually hampers the EV transition as well, because a lot of people are not willing to buy EVs because it hampers their transportation to rural areas for vacations or for any other purpose. Um, it, this may not be a very big issue in Europe, but in US, for example, that's one of the major hurdles where people don't buy EVs because they have to travel long distances outside the cities, and the infrastructure is actually not there for them to charge. So that's one another major issues or that Europe is right now facing. Then I have a few stats and analysis that we did. So if we look at different areas in Europe, so Western Europe has the highest charging density. It has mix of both low and high power units. If I talk about like the average power of chargers, it is close to 30 kilowatts. It varies between different countries, but you can say it's close to 30 kilowatt. However, when we move to the eastern side of of Europe, we would see fewer stations, less number of chargers installed, but more DC high power chargers installed and lesser AC power chargers installed in Eastern Europe. So we can see that although there are DC chargers being installed, but Eastern European countries, they need to install more cheaper AC chargers in order to uh, increase accessibility of chargers, and people can find more chargers in their cities and rural areas as well. And then Southern Europe, we have seen countries like Spain and Italy gaining momentum over the years, but they're still long way to go, and there's a huge untapped growth potential in Southern European countries. um, Lastly, I'd compare, if you have to compare the EV chargers growth and also the vehicle, so vehicle to charger ratio is a very good metric to do that. If we compare different European countries, we would see a lot of variation. We would see some countries doing very well. The ratio is close to 10. We For some countries we would see this ratio even rising up to 50. So this tells us that countries are either lagging behind in selling their EVs, or they are lagging behind in installing EV charging infrastructure. So a lot of countries need to catch up with respect to that. And on the graph here on the right side, we can actually see that Central European countries have more chargers, and then other countries are lagging behind. um, Although these were some of the issues that I've identified, but it's not that European Union or European countries are not doing anything to cater that. AFIR was a very uh, positive development last year, where the European Union had given regulations and directions to all the countries and businesses to actually fulfill some of the requirements to enhance the customer experience for all the EV drivers. The 60-kilometer rule along the 10T network, that's one of the major uh, things that is going to address the inavailability of chargers outside urban areas. Along with that, the AFIR promotes pricing transparency. Smart charging is also now a condition that all chargers should be smart as well, connected to a network. And then open data as well, where there is unrestricted access, and consumers have more transparency and more data on where the charger is, whether it is occupied, what's the operational status, what's the price, what's the tariff rates that they will be paying to get charged. So these are some positive developments that have already happened or are happening right now. So AFIF, the fund, which is basically from the European Union, we can see that they've already granted almost 1.7 billion euros since 2021, out of which almost 60% is designated for public charging infrastructure. So, there is movement from the Union as well. So that's a positive sign. Um, with this, I'll move on to some of the existing challenges that we've identified are are there in Europe. Number one, uneven charger deployment and fragmented incentives. That's one major challenge that most of the European countries and businesses are facing. Then, secondly, prolonged approval and permitting delays. This is not only from utilities, but also from municipal governments and city governments as well. The permitting time and the approval time is on the higher side there as well. And then thirdly, investment challenges and capital pressure. This is uh, more relevant for smaller countries where the infrastructure is not yet very common. They face investment issues. So that's one of the major issues as well. And then fourthly, grid constraints and supply bottlenecks when it comes to the availability of grid or electricity for the charging infrastructure that is to be installed. So all of this is going to have implications. It will have implications on the EU's target for 2030, or it will also have implications on the ICE ban that is there till 2035. It might affect it to be delayed, or if these challenges are addressed in time, maybe we can see these targets being achieved even earlier. But these challenges need to be addressed. Um, with this, I'll move on to some of the strategies that we've observed are being used in the market in different countries in Europe or elsewhere in the world, which can actually address some of these issues. So number one would be to identify priority EV charging areas. So if I have to break this down, I'll do that in two different issues. So one is uneven charger distribution. That is a high concentration of chargers are right now in urban hubs, and there is shortage uh, of chargers alongside like interurban rural corridors or in other rural areas. And this actually is one of the major factors which contributes to range anxiety, and it limits long distance travel for EV drivers. And then the second issue, or the second thing is the imbalanced demand supply. So there is oversupply in low demand zones, which leads to underutilization of chargers, which is a major issue for most of the CPOs in Europe right now. And a lot of CPOs in the past have actually closed down due to bankruptcy because they were not profitable and their chargers were underutilized. So that's one of the major issues. So while there is oversupply in some low demand zones, there are some high demand areas where there are no chargers at all, or there are shortages. So what needs to happen is better planning and targeted funding. So programs like AFIF, or from the program that the German government has, they are direct investments to actually have EV chargers installed at high value corridors, which is one of the major ways that other countries also can make access to rural areas for EV drivers easier, and that needs to happen. So governments need to have incentives, and they need to have fundings available for CPOs to install chargers outside urban areas. That's one thing. And then to address the imbalanced demand supply, I think planning oriented models are very important. So we can take an example of Stockholm, Sweden's capital. They have a very good process where they select high potential locations to ensure efficient deployment, and they've been pretty much successful in doing that too. And then lastly, I'll give an example of one of the leading CPOs in Europe, Fastned. According to their financial reports, they're doing pretty well because they've from the beginning, since they've started installing chargers, their aim has been to cherry pick strategic locations. And by doing that, they've actually, we can see that their revenue has grown tremendously over the years. And last year it increased by like 30% to 54.3 million. And they're increasingly installing more new chargers in different parts of Europe. So that's one example or a success story that we can see. Then secondly, another issue is with regards to availability of the grid. When companies and when CPOs are installing chargers, um, I think what needs to be done and what is already happening is that CPOs, especially the leading CPOs such as Ionity, they're already installing renewable energy along with their chargers. So Ionity, in their charging hubs, they're ensuring that either they have renewable energy generation at the back of their charging stations, or they're doing green energy contracts. So this is going to help in two ways. It is going to help CPOs in two ways. Number one, their dependency on the grid and on utilities would decrease. Hence, a lot of costs related to approvals, permitting, they could also go down, and then their wait time could also reduce. And then they can also then sell it as a USP to their customers, that they have green energy supplying to their chargers, which can be one of the unique selling propositions as well. So CPOs all across Europe, they need to start planning proactively, and also start they need to have renewables integrated more and more in their plans, because in the future it is going to be, um, it might get more stricter when it comes to regulations as well, like what electricity is being supplied to these chargers, is it clean energy or not. So CPOs should be proactive in that. um, Thirdly, streamlined permitting and coordination. So right now in Europe, if I have to tell you, the deployment delays are a lot, for especially for high power chargers. So typical deployment timeline is from 12 to 18 months. The planning approval alone takes around 8 months on average. And then getting connection from the grid, uh, the DSOs that do assessment, they take around 1 to 3 months, and then final site approvals can additionally take more than like 2 to 3 months. So there are a lot of number of like delays when it comes to installing EV chargers. So these need to be cut down in order to promote CPOs, which are already, as I said, not profitable in most of the cases. So cutting down these expenses and cutting down these time lags would actually help them a lot, and also help like grow the market as well for EV charging. So what are the solutions, what are the strategies that needs to be followed? So early coordination and planning. So municipal planners, DSOs, CPOs, they need to come on the table and devise processes which are efficient and which are proactive in nature. And companies can, like, it's easier for CPOs to install chargers, and all these deployment delays can be cut down. But then, secondly, streamlined approvals. There should be a single window approval system. It's not available right now in Europe in most of the countries. There could be one or two examples, but generally it's not available. But there needs to be pre-approved templates for sites, and then design submissions and all the other administrative cycles they need to reduce. And the solution for that would be a single window approval system, where all these different stakeholders have already pre-approved plans and processes. And then lastly, AFIR has laid down different standards for interoperability, and also other technical standards. In CPOs, and then governments, local governments need to ensure that these are implemented, and their implementation is also going to help in streamlining permitting, and then also reducing deployment timelines. Um, Next is basically an issue that we identified was regarding financing. So there are two major types of financing that are being used. One is public-private models, and this has been one of the most effective ways to increase the EV charging infrastructure all across Europe. So partnerships like or government plans such as Deutschland Netz from Germany or Rapid Charging Fund. They've been very useful. So in Germany, like a euro 1.8 billion subsidy to attract private capital for 8,000 high-speed chargers. That's one of the one that's one successful plan that's right now ongoing, and a lot of chargers are being installed as part of that. And similarly, in the United Kingdom, a lot of chargers on motorways and outside the cities, it's being done through the Rapid Charging Fund as well. So other countries which do not already have such plans, they need to introduce, especially countries in Eastern Europe which are lagging behind. They need to have more public private partnerships and more public fundings available for the EV charging infrastructure to grow at a more rapid pace. uh, and then there are municipal governments and city governments also playing a vital role um, in testing or in doing pilots for new technologies such as V2G. So Netherlands is doing pilot in their city where multiple different EV OEMs are partnering with the EV charger OEMs and CPOs to install V2G chargers, and testing is being done on to see how successful V2G can be in the future as part of public charging infrastructure. Apart from that, capital markets and green financing is also available. One of those financing is from EIB Bank, and similarly, CEF programs from European Union. They offer concessional loans and guarantees, which actually de-risk a lot of large-scale corridor projects. So countries which already are not using those fundings should use those fundings and uh, should basically go to these banks and funding programs to install more EV chargers. We've also seen other innovative funding mechanisms as well. So, for example, Fastnet, they're issuing bonds to get investment right now, and then they pay back in a period of 5 to 7 years to their investors at a good interest rate as well. So that's one other way that successful CPOs are using to get investment for their charging infrastructure. And then we have Gridserve as well. They also got a sustainability linked loan, which is one of the largest loans for private EV charging financing that reduces cost of capital. So public uh, private partnership, and then loans and grants from private institutions are also available for businesses and in the developing countries to take advantage of. And then lastly, there is another trend that we see, which is um, a shift to distributed architecture, which will enable scalability and also improve utilization for CPOs. So uh, Up till now, in the past 5 years, most of the chargers, DC chargers, high power DC chargers that were being installed by companies like ABB or Tritium or EV Box and other companies, most of them were standalone chargers. But there is now an increasing trend that distributed architecture is being installed more, particularly in depots, in public charging infrastructure and public chargers as well, which improves their utilization efficiency as well, since multiple vehicles can be connected to a high power charger, a 1 megawatt charger, or uh, even a 400 kilowatt charger. And based on the number of vehicles, the speed of charging would vary, but it actually ensures for the CPOs that their charger is utilized more by multiple vehicles rather than depending on one single vehicle to charge their to use their charger. So this is another trend that we see in the market, and it's going to uh, benefit. It is going to be beneficial in addressing multiple issues and multiple challenges that are in the industry. With this, I'll move on to how we see the future for EVs and EVCI in the next 5 years. So the number of EVs are expected to grow at a 13% rate in Europe, and we could expect to see almost 7.5 million EVs being sold in 2030. Um, Whereas if you talk about EV charging points right now in 2024, if 285,000 chargers were being installed, we can expect to see close to 625,000 chargers being installed in 2030. And this is expected to grow at a CAGR of 12%. And in order to ensure that this happens, I think the key areas where the different stakeholders need to prioritize is: number one, prioritize affordability and access of EVs. So more cost-effective EV options need to be introduced. As Najd mentioned, that is already happening, and a lot of EV OEMs are planning to launch newer models. That has to happen if the EV market has to grow organically. Then secondly, the regional imbalances need to be mitigated, and they need to be solved. More chargers need to be installed in countries where there are less chargers right now. So apart from the top five markets in Europe, which take almost like 55-60% of the market, the other 40% needs to grow to a majority by 2030. Then thirdly, accelerate infrastructure expansion, and that is going to happen through national programs, more programs from EU, and then private investments as well from different CPOs and different businesses as well. And then lastly, integrate grid and renewable as early as possible, because um, the earlier we react, or the more proactive CPOs are and more proactive governments are in using renewable energy and using more new technologies as part of the infrastructure, the future is going to get much more easier to basically scale all of this infrastructure. Um, with this, I would end the presentation. If you have more questions on what we offer, what we have as part of our service, please scan this QR, and it would take you to our website where you can see what we offer. So we have the EV and EVCI hardware service market. Along with that, we also have uh, information on the after sales services market as well. So for more information, we'll be there to help you with, and you can contact me or Najd after this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. Really great information and very relevant to what is happening in the industry right now. We are now moving into the live Q&A. I'd like to encourage our audience to submit their questions in the comments. To begin, I have a couple of questions from my side. The first one, I would like to ask you, how sustainable is the current rebound in the electric vehicle sales, given ongoing inflationary pressures and delay OEM electrification targets? Could 2025 represent a short-term rebound or the start of a structural market rebalancing? Thank you.
Okay, I think I'll take that question. Um, well, to be honest, I don't think it's temporary. We've seen in the past that there have been ups and downs in the market, but things are now moving towards stability. We are seeing that EV OEMs are going to introduce more affordable EV options, which are targeted towards the general audience, which cannot only afford like the luxury EVs that were previously on offer in the previous years. So more affordable EVs are going to come in the market. That is going to be very crucial. And then we also have incentives being reintroduced by many by government. So Germany, which discontinued their incentive in 2023, they have a new incentive now for the low and medium income households. So such more incentives in other countries are also there, and this is going to basically sustain this growth, and we could expect to see to a stable market in the future, moving forward.
Thank you, Rafi. I have another question is what implications do anti-subsidy tariffs and potential EU-China price floors hold for EVs affordability in Europe?
So, as you know, as Najd also mentioned that the primary reason for introduction of these tariffs is to safeguard the e- industry, the automotive industry in Europe. So, in short term, I think what's going to happen is the prices are going to be a little inflated compared to if it would have been an open market where Chinese OEMs could have easily sold their vehicles. The affordability of people will be affected in the short term. Um, so it all depends now on the EV OEMs in Europe to actually innovate and introduce cost-effective EVs, which are affordable for mass audiences.
Thank you. And I have another question from my side. And once again, I will remind our audience that they can submit the questions on the comments. Another question from my side is how soon could vehicle to grid reach commercial viability and for what applications?
Um, so V2G is one of the topics that has been talked about for the last 2 to 3 years, or even more. A lot of EV charger OEMs have already like have their products ready, but they're waiting for EV OEMs to catch up. And EV OEMs, first of all, they need to have models which have V2G compatibility. There are a few models already available, but this needs to get more common. And then the other barrier is with regards to the regulations. If we have to provide energy back to the grid, the utilities need to be ready with that. The grid needs to be ready to actually take energy back into the grid. So it is pending from that end. Once these barriers are overcome, we could expect that V2G is going to get common. I would say next 3 to 4 years are crucial, and then we could see a huge growth in V2G as well, especially in V2 vehicle to home chargers, where chargers will be installed in home, and then they can the batteries in EVs can be used as a storage to power home appliances. I think that market uh, can get the boom first, and then the public chargers market.
Thank you, Rafi. And we have questions here from our audience. Is what's your take on EVs from China flooding Europe in the next decade and new battery technology, increase range and high speed, charging technologies changing range, anxiety, and demand on charging infrastructure?
Changing range anxiety. I'll just read the question again,
Yes, please.
and then I'll answer. Mhm.
If it's not clear, the question, we can also
I
address
think
it
I
after.
Yeah, sure. I'll give an answer, but if it's still not clear, whoever has answered this question, please come back to us, and we'd be happy to help you with this. So China is definitely introducing new technologies there. So they've introduced BYD has a vehicle which can charge at 1 megawatt as well. um, I think this is all of this is going to help the market in the future, overall globally. And such advancements do not stay with one company, or do not stay in one country. We could expect European OEMs and then American OEMs, all other OEMs as well, to innovate and then introduce such models which can charge at rapid pace, and which can have huge batteries as well, which completely nullifies the issue of range anxiety. So that's completely possible, and we do expect the battery sizes to increase over the years, in the coming years, and then also the range anxiety to decrease. So with that, I think the type of infrastructure that needs to be added in the market gets more and more importance. Like high speed chargers would need to be installed more, and that is what we see as well. In the future, more high power chargers will be installed, um, especially for applications on highways or major public roads. um, so so yeah, if I haven't answered you completely, I'd be happy to, you can share it here as well, and then later as well, for us to answer.
Yeah, fantastic. Rafi, I don't see more questions from our audience, so I'd like to thank you, Rafi and Naj, for an excellent presentation. And I'm sure our audience gained some valuable perspectives from today's discussion. A big thank you as well to everyone working behind the scenes. Your efforts made this webinar possible. As mentioned earlier, today's session will be available on demand on our website. I'm also excited to share that the call for papers is now open. This is your chance to take the stage at CWIEME Berlin 2026, taking place from the 19th to the 21st of May. Be sure to submit your paper by 28th of November. I look forward to receiving your submissions and to seeing you all at the next CWIEME Tech Talks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.